Welcome to Truth Telling with Elizabeth DiAlto, the podcast dedicated to focusing on the truth that's always evolving within us and around us, where we explore the potentiality of truth as a highly esteemed value, especially in the context of everything that falls under the topics of healing, growth, leadership, and creativity. If you're new to me, full expression is my jam. I'm the creator of a practice called Wild Soul Movement. My flagship year-long online women's circle is called Power. I run virtual new moon circles every month, weekend workshops all over the planet throughout the year, and I work with clients one-on-one. I also started doing stand-up comedy for fun in 2018. So this is a place where you can come with your multiple talents and passions to be encouraged, nourished, and cultivated. There's a lot of noise and ignorance in our current culture, and this show also aims to cut through that by exploring the truths of a diverse range of incredible voices. From authors, artists, creatives, and educators to activists, speakers, and those in various scientific and esoteric fields, our guests hail from cultures and countries all over the world. The main intention here is to contribute to creating a kinder, gentler, more curious, collaborative, reverent world where people respect each other's backgrounds, experiences, and truths, and they trust in themselves and in life and recognize that we need each other. We post a new interview every Monday, and if you want to keep up with the show notes and quotes from our guests, you can follow me on Instagram at Elizabeth DiAlto. A few disclaimers. No episode of the show is meant for everyone, and every episode is meant for whoever needs it on the right day at the right time. Not all guest views will reflect my own, and that's intentional. We don't learn, grow, heal, or improve by staying in our comfortable bubbles with all of our people who look, think, or live exactly how we do. If you love what you hear and find it useful and inspiring, the best way to show your appreciation is to share the episode, subscribe to the show, and leave us a rating or review wherever you listen in from. Thank you so much for being here, and here we go. What's up, everybody? This is episode number 318 of Truth Telling with Elizabeth DiAlto, and in today's show, we're exploring something we never have before, hypnotherapy as a healing modality. And we can't talk about hypnotherapy without getting into beliefs and how the subconscious mind works. So I was really excited that Stephanie Kwong, who is a dear friend of mine and also a brilliant practitioner, agreed to come on the show and jam on all of that. Now, if you are not interested in hypnotherapy, that's totally cool. We also talked about some other really interesting stuff like sleep cycles and rhythms and how that differs for different people. It was also a really fun and personal conversation where we both shared some of the beliefs we've been working to rewire. Steph's was around making it hard for people to love her. Mine was around trusting myself, but not trusting others. We talked about patterns, managing expectations, and the ways that we delete and distort information in our reality to make things match our current beliefs. She also walked me through the 4 ways to actually change your beliefs for good. So this is a really juicy conversation. It's a combination of personal stories and examples, as well as client stories, to really bring home just how complex our minds actually are and how important it is to pay attention to the ways that we act based on what we think is true that isn't always necessarily true. So enjoy this one. It's episode number 318. So you can get links to anything that we mention over at untameyourself.com/318. Because there's so many interesting examples in this episode, this is a great one to share with your friends to, I often think how amazing it would be for people to use podcasts as book clubs, like the way people get together to talk about a book, to get together and talk about something that came up in a podcast, because I know that there's going to be so many bits and pieces of what we both shared here that will really relate and really land and really resonate for some of you. So as always, you can find me on Instagram. You can shoot me a DM or find the post for the podcast, leave a comment, let me know what you thought. I always love hearing from you. So enjoy, share, and let's get into today's show. You're here.
Yes.
I'm so excited to have you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
So everyone listening, I met Stephanie in 2014. No, yeah, 2013. When did I bump into you at the warehouse?
It wasn't the warehouse. Wait, was that the warehouse?
Yeah.
No. Oh, hold on. I take notes on people. I'm going to do this right now.
That's what I love about. So thorough.
Why Wow, I don't have notes on that, but I have when we had our first mastermind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in my memory, the first time we actually met was at the warehouse, and you,
2013.
right. Okay, cool. So, and you had somehow made the connection that we were both in B school, and that's how,
Mm-hmm.
right?
And then we connected up somehow. It was through the interwebs. And then I think I saw that you were going to go salsa dancing. And I was like, girl, I'm in. And that's when I went and met up with you.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if you remember this, but I tell this story quite often. But you were out there burning up the dance floor. Like men were just coming up to you, you were spinning, doing your thing, rocking their world. And I brought my friend Katya, and we stood there, and no one would ask us to dance. And there was a wall of men, like an entire wall of men. And I think we were the only two women not dancing. And that was the night we were like, that's a Latin champion. She's a pro dancer. He's a pro dancer. And I was like, why won't they dance with us? And you said, it's your shoes. They know that you don't know what the fuck you're doing. And I was like, because I didn't have dance shoes on then.
That's like the signal.
It is. I didn't know that. Girl, you should have told me. Because then I just stood there. But it was amazing. I felt like it was like Dirty Dancing. I walked in and it was
Yeah.
over the dance floor. So even though I didn't get to dance that night, it was so much fun.
So, and it's funny because you know me, like I observe so many things. I notice men walking around and looking down at people's shoes, and like, right? Because like if someone has the shoes, they at least know they've like gone to a class or something.
This is true.
Right. And then I feel like there's a point, I've been noticing this, there's a point at which I think women can graduate from the shoes because people like know who the F they are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, all I did to make up for it is I stole a pair of my mother's dance shoes because she's like a pro ballroom dancer. And I was like, these are coming with me. I'm pulling a 15-year-old move right now, and I'm taking my mother's dance shoes, an extra pair. And now, guess what? They asked me to dance when I go now.
Yeah. Yeah. And we went, actually. It was so funny.
Yeah.
A couple months ago. It was so freaking fun. Oh, I love that. So, how's your body today?
It's good. It's rested, which feels nice. Usually I've been having bouts of like peeing in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
Like it kind of then messes with I notice with my energy levels, but slept through the night like a baby last night.
Love that.
Feeling good.
So everyone listening, one of the things I love about Stephanie, I feel like you're such a thorough, diligent person. And I love this. So Stephanie also has her own podcast. Rise Higher is the name,
Rise
right?
Higher.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I'm not great at remembering names of things.
You just did.
And you were recently telling me about a sleep person that you interviewed. And so this little tip that I took away, I mean, and actually, I'll ask you to reiterate this in a moment now that I'm bringing it up. I'm not just going to leave people hanging being like, what was she talking about? But the thing that you shared with me was like, there's a couple different sleep types. He associates them with animals. And I realized that was it the lion, the one that rises at like 5 or 6 a.m.?
Mm-hmm.
And so for years I've been saying that no matter what time I go to sleep, I like wake up between like 5 and 7 a.m., you know? And you were like, yeah, the guy said, and you can tell me his name in a moment. The guy said that if that's your way, but like if you went to bed later, he's like, there's nothing wrong with taking a nap a couple hours later or in the middle of the day. And I was like, oh, so I've literally been experimenting lately with, I actually set an alarm for 6:30.
Amazing.
So that, and often I'm waking up before that anyway. I rarely am sleeping when that alarm goes off, and just like giving myself permission no matter what to like wake up when my body wants to wake up and not go back to sleep. Because going back to sleep to get like 6 or 7 or 8 hours, that messes with my day. You were like, oh yeah, no, like you should get up when your body wants to get up and then take a nap later. Like it sounds so simple. People listening might be like, yeah, duh. But for whatever reason.
It's not a yeah, duh, because here's what's crazy is, so let's say you're a lion, right? So you get up at 5, 5:30, 6. Lions are more like the 5:30-ish range, but still 6 a.m. And if that's when you wake up, he's like, it's actually okay for you to take a nap at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
Because of the way your rhythms work. And that would not make sense to anybody. So if anybody is actually going, no, that makes sense. That's weird that they would think that, because I just like don't know anybody who'd go, I'm going to wake up and then take a nap at 9 a.m. But he said that that's actually natural, normal. And of course, when you take naps, I believe it's 30 minutes or there's a certain amount of time or maybe it's 25. My memory is not serving me right now.
Okay.
Listen to the episode. But he actually says if you take a nap, you can only take it for this amount of time, because then your circadian, or like your sleep cycle starts again, and you don't want to wake up when it's like in a certain point of
I remember you told me this. It's either 20 minutes, like 20 or 25 minutes, or 90 minutes.
That's it.
Yep. Cool. Okay. So what was that? What was the man's name?
His name is Dr. Michael Bruce, the sleep doctor. And just so if people want to know, he talked about, they're called chronotypes, and there's 4 different chronotypes. It's the way your circadian rhythm works. And so he said, you've heard of the early bird and the night owl. He goes, but we're not birds, we're mammals. So he switched it to actual mammals. So what would be considered the early bird is the lion. They're the ones that get the first catch. And then there's the bear. They're usually like the 8 a.m.ers to 8 p.m. And he said our society is built on the bear. So he's like, it's actually a good thing to be a bear. 50% of the population are bears. And then there's the wolf, which is the night owl. And then there's the dolphin, which are the insomniacs. Since he's a sleep guy, of course, he incorporates an insomniac. Because he said, I didn't realize this, and it's weird because the dolphins are my favorite animals, is that dolphins never fully sleep. Half of their brain shuts off and the other is awake, and then they switch. And so that's very much equivalent to like an insomniac, right? You never fully fall asleep. And so I love when he shared this, because you hear the advice of people going, these are the habits of successful people. You must wake up at 5 a.m. before the sun rises, and journal and pray and meditate and work out, get all the things done. Otherwise, you're not successful. It's really kind of the messaging, right? They don't say that, but they're like, this is what successful people do. You must. And I've seen so many people try to force themselves to be the early risers, to be the lion, when they're actually designed as a bear, or maybe a wolf. And to stop shaming ourselves if that's not how our circadian rhythms work, but find what works for you. So that, like, I don't know, that was huge for me when I heard him say that. I actually saw him speak, and when he said, I'm like, you need to be on my podcast because people need to hear this. And obviously he's all over the place. He's pretty huge, but I just want more and more people to know that, it's okay. Like, honor how you're designed, and don't try to force yourself to be like someone else.
1,000%. I mean, we talk about this all the time.
All the time.
So, and the other thing I really love about this, I have noticed, so having a morning practice has been a challenge for me, because often I'm like ready to work in the morning. Actually, like my ideas, my creativity, like let me just get some stuff done for a few hours and then I'll meditate. And so when you said that line thing, like that first catch, that's my first catch.
Get
right.
It, girl.
And then if I go back to sleep and I wake up, that's like my second morning. Like some people have like second breakfast. I have like second wake up. Then I can meditate and do my morning practice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so I'm going to experiment this fall with actually scheduling my life around that and seeing this really could be life altering, and I know some people have like work and they have to go to work. Like you might not have the flexibility, but I love stuff like this. And especially the part that you just mentioned, right? Just because someone writes a book that's like, get up every morning at 5 a.m. and read 15 pages and meditate and write down what you're grateful for, like, doesn't mean if you're not doing that shit, you're not going to be successful.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, I'm never going to be a person who makes my bed. That's one of those books, like, make your bed first thing in the morning. And I'm like, I'm not making my bed. Every once in a while I make it. And I'm like, that's lovely. But
yeah.
Bed, and that's not impacting my success. It's just not. So, so again, you being a very thorough person, again, I love all of your own practices, and also that you have really done so much work on yourself. So I want to ask the question that I always ask people to start the interview about your big truth, but I also want to make sure that we dig into what led you to what you do is like one of your primary practices now, which is hypnotherapy. Because we've never geeked out on hypnotherapy on the podcast before. So go there with
you. How do you not? I can't wait.
But first, what's the truth that's having a big impact on your life right now?
Okay. So the first thing that actually popped up when you said that There's two, but I'll share the first one. It was like one, and then the second one came in right after. But the first is, this actually came during a DMT ceremony when I had actually a car accident, and I got PTSD from it. And I knew that plant medicine was like the thing that was going to help me. I'd actually used to work in a treatment center with women who had mood and mental disorders, and I called one of the therapists who I was friends with, and I told her, she's like, girl, you have PTSD, you need support. Gave me a whole list of referrals for therapists, but I'm like, no. And I just felt the calling for medicine. And I'm not going to tell the whole story of it, but basically ended up in a DMT ceremony. And when I took the first inhalation of it and fell back, the very first message was, stop making it so hard for people to love you. So that's been a work in progress of a truth that I am loved just for me, and that we all are lovable just for ourselves. And it's interesting because I am a 7 on the Enneagram. And then I decided to like retake it yesterday even. I'm like, I'm just curious. Took like a different version of it, and it popped up as a 3. And the 3 is the achiever. And the achiever is all about my worth, and how you'll like me or love me is based off of my accomplishments.
Ooh.
And I can see how that plays out in my life as well. I still feel like I'm more designed as a 7, or a blend of the two, really. But yeah, that then had me see again, I was like, shit, I'm still putting so much of my value and how people can love me based off of that. And not only that, but I've seen ways, and when I did a Vipassana earlier this year, I got to observe more of how I generate my own suffering. And in relationship, there's a lot of the holding expectation, even though I'm like, I don't have any expectation. I notice my brain automatically does that at times, and I'll have an expectation that someone can't meet. So then I give you that, see, they don't love me. And it's like, I make it hard, and I'll like push people out, or it's just weird. I've just been observing myself more. Obviously I've gotten way better, but even with my family, I got into this thing with my brother recently, and we actually just fully healed it, literally gone now. But, he'll come down to LA. They used to live in Los Angeles, but I was always the one that would drive to Encino. He would never come to the Marina or Venice to come see me. They moved to Seattle. I'll fly to Seattle, but when they're in LA, they'll drive to Pasadena to see my sister-in-law's parents, down to Irvine to see my mother and my stepdad, or down to San Diego to see my sister-in-law's brother, wife, and kids, but they can never make it to the Marina. So my story was like, well, you need to come here. Otherwise that means you don't love me. Right. And I again, here my 15-year-old likes to pop up. She steals shoes from her mother. And she also tell my brother, you don't love me unless you do X. And we had a conversation about it. And I realized it really was out of their way, and it would be better for me to go. But he had said one time, and I don't think he meant it in a rude way, but he's like, you're the single one. Like, it's hard to pack up a family and get somewhere. But I'm like, yeah, but you're packing up your family and driving to see everyone else. Doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter. Again, we had the most beautiful conversation to heal, where if I really allow myself to feel it, he loves me so much. He would do anything for me. And he's like, Stephanie, if it really mattered to you that much, I'll come. But I'm just trying to figure out how we can make it easier for everybody to get together at once. He goes, but it's not like I'm trying not to come to see you purposely. Mm-hmm. And I think I just needed to finally hear that one time, so that I can let it go and drop the expectation and just show up as who I know I am, is a person who generously gives love. Because I notice that I'll restrict love if I feel like I'm not getting it. Ooh.
That transactional love, girl.
And it depends. It's not always transactional.
Right.
But sometimes and I've just been working to break through that and really, again, just see the truth. It's that who I am is just a generous giver of love, and that I am lovable, and I can fully open myself to receive it. And it doesn't matter what it is that I'm doing. I don't need to beg for it. I don't need to even really ask for it. It's just available to me. I just have to open myself to it. And so that's really been a big one for me.
And there's two things in there that I appreciate so much that you're mentioning, and I'm sure people listening can resonate or see where in their own lives this pops up, which is, first of all, that piece of the assumptions. I feel like expectations and assumptions always go together, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't until you said something and put it out there of like the meaning that you were an assumption / meaning making, right? Of what you were making it mean, that he was able to be like, no, that's not it at all. And you could be like, oh, snap. And then kind of see where he was coming from, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, but the love language thing. So the 5 love languages, I've never even read the whole book. I like took the quiz, I read part of it, and I'm like, I get the gist here. I think the most significant piece of the message is this: people love in different ways. They both love outwardly and receive and like experience love in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like the kicker in so many of our relationships that we don't realize. So for example, my top love languages are physical touch and quality time. So if someone's way of giving love is like gifts or words of affirmation, I'm not being loved the way that I prefer, and it lands and resonates with me most. So it's super helpful to know, like, oh, this person's a gift giver. That might not be how I feel it, but they're totally loving on me.
1,000,000%. Mine are words of affirmation, and I feel like quality time and acts of service are kind
They
of
overlap. I agree with you.
But massive, because since I was the words of affirmation girl, I would go, this is back in the day, I would go to the store, like spend hours looking for the perfect card for my mother, write this whole long letter of like how much she means to me, how I'm grateful for her. I'd send it. And one day we were together and she said to me, this is when I was in my 20s, she goes, "You love me with conditions." And I was like, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, you love me with conditions." And I finally said, I'm like, "What do I need to do to show you that I love you? Or for you to feel that I love you?" And she goes, "Well, it'd be nice if you buy me lunch every now and then." And I went, oh, screw the cards, screw the like spending all this time writing to her how much I love her. Now it's like whenever we go out, I always pay for our meals. If we're at the grocery store, sometimes I'm like, throw it on the belt, I'll pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can like physically see her like like she feels loved. And so you're right, is actually taking the time to discover, one, how you like to receive love, and to communicate that to people instead of expecting them to know.
Right.
And then 2 is really actually seeing how other people want to be loved as well, and being willing to love them in the way that they experience love, not in the way that you like to give love.
Yeah. And you know what I find? So by the way, if anyone's not familiar, the 5 love languages, it's physical touch, quality time, acts of service, words of affirmation, and gifts. You know what I have found is an amazing discernment?
What?
When I am not willing to give the love in the way that they would receive it, that shows me that that's actually not a person I want to be super close with.
Mm.
Does that make sense? And like, I don't judge myself for that. I don't make them wrong. I don't make myself wrong. I'm like, oh, just good to see that this connection isn't an inner circle connection for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
Or just not, or we're in a phase, we're in a cycle where I'm like, I've overgiven, or there's like some kind of energetic imbalance there. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that with you right now.
Not today. No.
And that's not today. Not today. So fascinating, right? So, and that's funny to hear that you were words of affirmation, because last year on my birthday, you gave me one of my favorite gifts. And I even remember you saying, like, I tried to write a card and the words weren't coming, but I had chosen for my birthday last year 2 words, receptivity and intimacy. And you gave me like this bracelet that said intimacy and a spray, a blend, this spray. I still have it. I was just spraying it on my face the other day. It's taken me like a whole year to finish spraying myself with your receptivity spray.
Yeah, that my friend Sarah made with all her jewels and essential oils and all that goodness.
Oh, yeah. I loved it. I was like, this is amazing. So I was like, wow, she's an amazing gift giver. And that's not even who knows? So there's not to say that just because we have a primary, we can't phase it out of the things. So I want to come back to that big truth. Stop making it so hard for people to love you. Now, it feels personal. Maybe it's still tender. So please don't share anything that would be too much for you in the moment. But I'm curious if there's any examples you're comfortable sharing. So you already shared, if there's anything else, like you were holding expectations. and not communicating any meaning making or assumptions. Was there anything else that you were doing?
Ugh.
Again, don't share
Ugh.
anything that you don't feel like sharing.
It's fine, whatever. I mean, I'm happy to share in hopes that it serves the people who are listening, because in the case that they do this, because I'm going to guess I'm not the only person who does this.
Absolutely not.
But I would also really watch people, observe them a lot. And if I felt that they were doing something that could potentially have me feel like they were untrustworthy or that they could hurt me, I would cut them out of my life. And I would do like the Irish goodbye, be like,
AKA ghosting, AKA the fade out.
yes, all the AKAs. And it was just me going, don't hurt me, just love me. And if I feel like you're going to hurt me, bye, I'm out. And so that's another way. And it's just like, I would put up these walls and barriers to allowing people in, even to fully see me and to love me, and sit in judgment too of other people. Like, they did this, so they're not. And then I would sometimes, like with my brother, poor Jason, like even when we had the first conversation, when I said, well, I'd like for you to come down to, when he was planning, he's like, we're going to be in Pasadena. We're going to drive down to Irvine. Can you just come down to Irvine for the day? I was like, well, why don't you guys stop in the marina? I'm kind of on the way. Now, I never go to the Pasadena area, so I don't realize the freeway from Pasadena is a different freeway to get to Irvine. It's not on the way. But in my head, I'm like, I do
this too. I'm like, what? It's just it's actually not.
No, there's other ways of getting there. And so I said that, and he, again, finally got him to agree, but I could feel the resistance. And even my niece. So when we were at dim sum this was just this past weekend on Saturday.
I saw your Instagram stories. I was loving this.
Did you like the chicken feet?
Oh, so funny.
My nephew was not happy about that. But my niece at lunch, she looked at me, she goes, Auntie, were you mad at Daddy when we were on the phone? And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, when you asked Daddy to come to your house and he wasn't sure, were you mad? I was like, no, Kylie, I didn't want to tell this kid I was mad at my brother. She goes, well, Daddy was mad at you. Like, oh.
How old is she?
She's 6.
Amazing.
So it's me, her, and my brother sitting next to each other. So I look up and I go, hey, Jason, just so you know, your daughter's giving me a play-by-play by how you were mad at me in the car.
Your daughter's blowing up your spot right now.
Seriously. And he was like, yeah, I was pretty pissed off. But here, and then my sister-in-law goes, oh, she was in the car when the conversation, I'm like, it's cool. It's not a big deal, but it's just kind of a bummer that my niece is going, Daddy was mad at you. So good, right? But after I got off that call, obviously I was upset. And I had gotten him to agree to come here. But then there's a part of me, again, generous giver of love and willing to do whatever I need to do for the people I love. Like, Stephanie, come on. And so I was like, and I could see how it would be more fun. I wanted to see my mom and stepdad. Anyway, let's just go down there. So I ended up sending a text to my brother. And I said, just so you know, I'm going to come down to Irvine. But I also need to let you know it hurt when you said I was too far off too far west going south for you guys. Mm-hmm. He called immediately. And that's when we had the conversation where he's like, if you really, I know, he's so amazing. I'm just being an asshole. But he's like, Steph, I mean, I did put up with some of his stuff when I was younger.
Both things are true.
True. Yeah. That's a dialectic, both and. But it was, that's when he said, he's like, look, if it means that much to you, we'll come. He goes, but I mapped it. He even did the extra work. He's like, I mapped it. It's however many miles from Pasadena to Irvine, but then for us to go to you, it's an extra 30 minutes. And I was like, wow, the fact that he even looked it up to show me why he said that versus just having me believe it. Obviously, I just felt his love. And I know deep down, I've always known how much he loves me. He has my back. He's always been my protector and someone who I can count on. But I wanted to see and believe, I'm getting emotional, that he wasn't that, because it was my own stuff around allowing myself to be loved that I'm now twisting information to try to show that someone doesn't love me, even though they do. So Ooh, that's a truth.
So
Clearly
good.
that's still in motion.
So good.
Yeah.
It's making me emotional too, because, there's so many ways that we can't see that people are trying to love us the best they can. Right. And there's so many things we talk about on the podcast where, like, we don't have to tolerate poor treatment, but sometimes we can't see when people really are doing their friggin' best. Right. And like, sometimes people's best sucks, and sometimes people's best is undetectable to us because of our own stuff. So it's like, it's what this is just bringing forward in my mind, or like all the ways anyone listening, you, I, whomever, is missing out, as there's like love coming at us and we're not able to take it in. It's like a faulty digestive system that's not like metabolizing and absorbing the nutrients.
Such a good metaphor. Yep.
Right. And like we're eating and we're eating and we're eating everything we're supposed to, but still like we're not getting, and then we still have deficiencies because like we're just not absorbing the nutrients. Yeah. And this happens to us in our relationships too.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you just open your heart to receive it and really, because girl, look, I thought I worked through this shit, man. Like I have an entire self-love online course of all the like 40 practices I've done.
Yeah. 40, right?
40 unique practices of like years of me trying to find the things to like unearth and like dislodge the blocks. And it's still like, wow, there's just depths to go with the feeling lovable for me, knowing that I'm lovable just as I am. And so when I truly know I'm lovable, that means that I can just let the love in.
Yeah.
Instead of pushing it away. And life is so much nicer when you just let the love in.
Just let the love in. And quick break in the show, everybody, to let you know that Power 2020 is coming. Those of you who maybe are new here or maybe haven't listened to the last few episodes, in case you don't know, I run a year-long online women's circle called Power. In Power, we take the whole entire year, we take one topic per season to explore these 4 topics: surrender and release, trust and receptivity, passion and purpose, and love and truth. Essentially, it's called Power because this is the arc of power. These are the things that help people embody, embrace, connect to, and use their power for what I call expansion, for love, for good, and for healing. So if that is something that resonates for you, make sure you keep an eye out. In the next couple of weeks, I will be posting a link to get on the wait list so you can find out when enrollment starts, as well as some of the fun activities we have going on online during enrollment, some cool bonuses that are going to be available and things like this. It's literally like the most wonderful time of the year in my business. Every year when I get to enroll for Power, we get to welcome in the new class. It's super fun. It's super amazing. Some of the women who were in Power 2019 have already rejoined for Power 2020 because it's that amazing of an experience. And I don't mind spilling the beans a little bit. Those of you who have been wanting to come to a Wild Soul Movement weekend workshop, there might be a way to make that happen for you when you join Power 2020 at no extra cost. So I won't spill any more beans other than that just yet. So make sure you keep an eye out, get on that wait list when I share it, and let's get back in today's show. And this is such a good segue to talk about the hypnotherapy, because I did a session with you. Like at the time we're recording this, it's a Thursday, and last Friday, so just about a week ago, I did a session with you. And it was funny because, and I'll share this, I don't mind also sharing a little bit of the personal experience with people listening, because this was a really important, something that was coming up for me throughout the course of this summer, which I had dubbed my clean summer. And I really was dedicating in a lot of ways to integrating much of the personal work I'd been doing specifically over the last 3 years, was just this big pattern for me of being just like, where I do the thing that you mentioned earlier, just like wanting to like cut people off or push people away, being like, screw it, I'm better off on my own. I'll do it myself, and all the different ways that would show up in my life, right? Which then makes me exhausted sometimes. And then things get done in a mediocre way because I shouldn't be freaking doing them. Like on our episode number 314 from September 2nd, I told the story of trying to put together a 6-drawer dresser myself and breaking it in the process, then having to wait 3 weeks for the replacement piece to come. and just having this partially put together dresser propped up on books in my bedroom for 3 weeks because of me thinking I need to freaking do everything right. Silly, right? Just like silly.
Even when you posted the picture about how you rearranged your apartment, I'm like, did you move that wooden thing by yourself? And you're like, oh yeah. I'm like,
oh yeah,
girl, I live down
the
the
wooden
street.
thing, as
Call me
in,
up.
I know. Stephanie lives like this. Stephanie is why I live here. She's the one who gave me the recommendation. Like, if anyone's watching, this bookshelf behind me that you can tell by looking at it is not lightweight. I'm like, whatever, you could do it. Put your back into it. You know, just like whatever. And so I was in the space of being like, okay, this being on my own thing. I have a ton of support. I have amazing friends, blah, 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 all these things. But I really kind of sunk back into some hypervigilance this year of like just trying to do way too much on my own. And so I knew when I had the session scheduled with you, we've been planning this for like 2 months. And I'd been really inquiring, like wanting to bring, like, what's the thing that I want to work on in the session with you? And I checked in with a couple of my friends because I'm like, listen, the thing that I most need to work on is probably not something that I can see. So I checked in with like 4 of my closest friends and I'm like, okay, I'm thinking it has to do with something around this. I'm better off on my own, or I need to do everything myself thing. What do you think? And a few of my friends were like, yeah, that feels right. But then one of my friends, Rachel Maddox, who's been on the podcast a couple of times, was like, no, I think it's not about your beliefs about yourself. I think it's about your beliefs about other people. So I was like, okay, the truth. And then she was reflecting back to me some shit that I had just said to her. And the sentence that struck out, like literally made me laugh so hard, was, most people are disasters and untrustworthy. And I'm like, okay, that's the one. Because, right, what's been the crux of the deep work I've been doing the last few years, unpacking trauma from emotional abuse and narcissistic behavior, right? And then also simultaneously unpacking all of these things around social justice and systems of oppression, which function exactly how narcissism and emotional abuse function, right? Mm-hmm. So being so steeped in that and just seeing that everywhere, day in and day out, right? And then even in my work, which you could probably relate to, right? Most of the time people are coming to me because they're in pain. And so hearing how people have been abused, how, like, all these things. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a little jaded over here. Let's unpack that. And so, you know, we dug in, and in the session, it was so amazing. Like these memories that came up and stuff like this that pointed to, from a very early age, of course, why I would think that I always need to just retreat into the safety of my own existence and my own experience and just keep people at arm's length, you know?
Yeah. That's so crazy that when you asked me that question about the truth, that's what popped up for me. And that was exactly parallel, very similar to yours.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think most people are, what were your words? Untrustworthy and
total disasters.
Total disasters. That's
so, like, if I'm being really honest, but at the same, but like we were talking about those, you called it a dialectic, like a yes and. Part of what's gotten me hurt in my life in so many ways is seeing the best in people and falling in love with the potential, rather than how they were actually showing up, which in some cases was like a total disaster.
Total disaster. You're like, now I'm the disaster.
I'm the disaster over here
because I chose the disaster. Yeah, it's so interesting. Gosh, because I have mine of just the almost feeling maybe that I'm the disaster, right? And you're like everybody else's, but it still comes back to us always. And it was so powerful. I think once we really change the stories and get to the root of where this even came from. Yeah. Right. I mean, when I look at my past, I can see how my younger self had logic for why she chose to interpret certain situations the way she did and make up stories the way she did. But as I showed you, you know, that diagram before I put you into hypnosis, I was like, our conscious mind is forming around 7, 8-ish years old, but it's very unsophisticated.
Yes.
Like it's not, even though we have logic and the ability to analyze, make decisions and things like that, it's still not refined. And so a lot of the stuff we're misinterpreting, and then we'll use that moving forward. And that's where we need to go to heal it. And I see how much of that stuff was my little girl just feeling so unloved. So then now, even as an adult, it's like, where else can I keep showing that I'm not lovable or not loved? And, we'll literally delete and distort information in our reality to fit into what it is that we want to believe or what we have believed up until now, because we like to be right about what we believe. And it's wild. Like, I had a client, she was really struggling with her, the family system was really struggling. And so I said, why don't we bring your dad onto, or your parents onto one of the calls. It was mainly with her dad, but both of her parents came on. And she's like, I know how it's going to go, because with my last therapist, and I'm not a therapist, but when she had her therapy session, she's like, he bulldozed over her. He like was taking control of the situation. He wouldn't take responsibility, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, great. Well, let's see how it goes. He was the loveliest man. He really slowed. You could see how intentionally he was with his words to not hurt her or offend her. He said, I'm sorry. He took full responsibility every time she said something. And we get off. He only stayed on for 45 minutes so I could finish the last 15 with her. And I said, wow, your dad was really great. She's like, ugh. And I go, he said, I'm sorry, like 13 times. I counted. And she goes, he did? She did not hear one. Why? Because that would jack with how she currently has viewed her father up until now. And so she literally deleted out, or didn't even hear him saying, I'm sorry 13 times.
I love that you counted and you were like, yeah, 13.
It was like, because I had a feeling, because I could see in her body language, it wasn't landing for her. Mm-hmm. And so I needed to make sure she heard it. I didn't record it, actually, probably should have, so that she could play it back. But
right.
Yeah, like, it's crazy what we will do in order to be right. And so many of us have disempowering beliefs that when we're deleting and distorting a lot of amazing stuff, like the very things we want in our life, and then thinking, what's wrong with me? I don't deserve to have it. Maybe in another lifetime I'll get it. It's like, no, it's right in front of your face. You just got to rewire yourself so that now what you're deleting and distorting or sorting for or searching for in your reality validates what you believe, which are things that are aligned with what it is that you actually want. Things that actually attract to things instead of pushing them away and putting up those walls. So yeah, hopefully.
Amazing. So I love that you said, I remember when you were making that self-love thing, the 40 practices, and like really working your ass off on that. Yeah. So as someone who has done so much work on yourself, done so many modalities, so many practices, all these things, why is hypnotherapy the thing that you've really gone all in on in your own practice and healing, and then obviously in what you do?
Yeah, because where the change needs to happen is in your subconscious. A lot of the work that we do is on the conscious level. Read a book, listen to a podcast, go to a workshop or a training, or even like a landmark, MITT, whatever the flavor of, training, even Tony Robbins. I've been to a ton of his stuff, and a lot of it, some of it might seep into the subconscious a little bit, but most of it is conscious level work. So people all of a sudden feel like, oh, I've got the keys of the kingdom, I'm changed, because they have a new awareness now that they've gotten this new information, but it hasn't changed in their belief system at a subconscious level. It's only the conscious level awareness, which is amazing. You can't change what you can't see, but you got to get to the root of where the change has to happen. Yeah. And so that's why the same thing, you can sit here and go, oh no, and tell yourself, because actually it's funny. I'm running a mastermind right now, and I have women in there where it's like, how many of you, believe you can make $1 million? And many of them were like, ooh, you could see it in their faces. They're like, and then 2 of them raise their hands, and I go, why haven't you yet? Right? And then they're like, because if you truly believed it, you would already have it. Your external world reflects your internal world, right? If you, or maybe if it doesn't matter to you, but you believe it. But ultimately, if you truly believe something, your external world will usually reflect that belief.
Right. If it's,
and this is something
you're
that
wanting to prioritize. Yes. If you want it. Like, you might believe it, but it might not be that important to you. And so obviously, yeah.
Yeah. However, so what I see a lot is when people want, your desires are part of your conscious mind, conscious desires. I want to lose the 10 pounds, or I want to call in the relationship, or I want to have X amount of dollars, or this many clients, or fill in the blank of the conscious desire of what you want. But you're not able to attain it. And yet you go and you try all these strategies. Like I had a friend, like she told me, this is funny. She goes, Stephanie, because, I'm ready to call my partner. She goes, you know what you need to do? You need to get yourself out there. You need to get on the apps. You need to start messaging people. You need to ask people to set you up on dates. And I still knew and felt this like mismatch of energetic alignment and beliefs around me really being able to have what I want in a relationship. So if I didn't change that, I probably would, even if I put myself on the apps, maybe I would meet someone. But my guess is that I would continue to attract my old pattern, which is men who cheated. And that's not what I wanted, because the subconscious beliefs about what I deserve and the men had not fully altered yet. And it was interesting because she's sitting here telling me to do the strategy piece, right? Put yourself online, do the thing. And then I asked her, I said, and she's been super active on these apps for like 3 years solid. It's like a job for her. And I go, hold on one second. You've been on the apps like it was a job for you for the past 3 years. You're still single. So it's not like, Steph, you're not doing it right. Get yourself on the apps. Otherwise, you're never going to find it. And it was just interesting because, again, where most people look to try to get what they want is to find some external strategy that's going to get them there. Right? And I know, I've hired multiple business coaches thinking when I wanted to next level my business, and I was learning strategy, but I was still stuck in the same place. Well, guess what? My identity, who I saw myself as, what I was capable of, didn't match what it is that I wanted. So it didn't matter how much I tried to do. I wasn't being the type of person who could have the thing that I wanted.
Yeah.
And that's what we alter in the subconscious, is the ways of being, the beliefs of who you are, what you deserve. And what I love about the hypnosis piece, it's the fastest way I've discovered to access the subconscious and to create the change there. Because we change beliefs in 4 different ways. Right? We can change our beliefs through repetition. We can change our beliefs through hypnosis. That's actually really how we learn. When you were born till about 7-ish years old, you're actually in a pure hypnotic state, meaning you were suggestible to whatever people told you. Your brain waves were in theta, which is also the hypnotic state, right? Or like the deep, deep meditation. So you were wide open and you were receptive then. That's also the state of hypnosis. Then you can also change your beliefs through a high impact event. And it could be positive or negative. Maybe you have a car accident. Boom. New beliefs formed in that moment, right? High emotion, high thought, a certain thought wired together. Now it's a new belief. It could also be positive, like you're scared to speak on stage and all of a sudden you finally do it and you're like, that was the most amazing thing ever. And now I want to be on every single stage, right? And so that can alter that fear straight to a new belief as well. And then the 4th is I found through somatic work, like going through the body, doing, whether it's breath work or other forms of somatic work. The challenge for me with the somatic work sometimes is you can't pinpoint the thing, right? You can do it like whether it's medicine or plant medicines or the breath work or the body movement or trauma release therapy. But sometimes it's difficult to say, this is the thing that I need to change and rewire, make that happen. So that's why, again, the hypnosis piece has been so powerful, is you can get specific about it and change it where it matters most, because your subconscious literally runs the habitual thoughts that keep happening in your mind. And it also keeps the same feelings, the habitual feelings, which then creates the action or inaction, which keeps giving you the results that you have or don't have.
Yeah.
Altered at the subconscious, and that's working aligned for you, game over. So when your conscious desires and your subconscious are 100% aligned with what you want, that's what manifestation is.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's your energy is fully aligned and clean for the thing that you say that you want.
I love it so much. This is something so funny with Wild Soul Movement. When I created that and we combined the movement with the mantra and meditation, I didn't know why it was working so well for some people until like a year or two in, where I realized these things that you just said, the 4 things, the repetition of the mantra combined with the somatic work is kind of like
Boom.
a 1-2 punch for folks.
Yep.
Because like you're saying, repetition on its own can take a really long time. Somatic work on its own can take a really long time. And you know, I'm about efficiency. So get the hypnotherapy. That's why it's so cool. Like get up in there, like get this thing, pull it up at the roots, right?
Yeah. And what's so cool about hypnosis too, there's so many different things that you can use for it. Like obviously a lot of belief change work, repatterning of habits, but also being able to access memories that were repressed and stuff down that maybe you can't access. You know, I have so many key clients that I've worked with examples of how that's shown. I had a client come, he was in his late 20s, multiple 7-figure entrepreneur, had an addiction, wanted to break it, came to me. I did a process similar to what I did to you because we wanted to retrace, like, where did this stem from? And in the regression, a moment of time came up when he was 3 years old. He was playing with his toys in his closet. His dad came in, told him to play with it in a certain way. He didn't want to. He did it his way. His dad said no. And I said, how did that make you feel? And he goes, stupid. And his whole body dropped and he starts crying. We had to repattern that obviously for him. But when he came up out of hypnosis, he goes, Stephanie, I've been like fighting my whole entire life thinking that I'm stupid. I built this entire company to prove that I'm not dumb. I had no idea where this came from. That is not something therapy could have uncovered for him. Right. And it's not even like a trauma event. Because a lot of times people are like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I didn't have a lot of trauma. I shouldn't have these disempowering beliefs. It doesn't matter. It could be something as simple as
those tiny, tiny things.
And it can be a big trauma too that causes it. But something like that, or, you know, another client of mine was having panic attacks. I think I told you about her, and couldn't figure out why. And it didn't start until she was 20. She went to see everybody, in her words, everyone, to figure it out. And the final answer was, here, take this pill, you know, take Prozac. And she's like, I knew I didn't want it. Her friend was a client of mine. She's a TV hostess and had to travel, and she was having all this panic and anxiety around traveling. And through, again, the regression, found out when she was 7 years old, the Northridge earthquake hit. And she had so much panic from it and fear. And she wrote in her intake form, I need you to know that usually when the anxiety and panic hits, it's late at night and early in the morning. Well, when she recounted or, you know, reviewed the experience, she said that when the tremors hit, it was late at night and early in the morning.
Wow.
So this is all lodged in her soma, right? In her subconscious, her body. And she had no way to access this consciously or through talking about it. But when we ask her subconscious to reveal it in a safe environment and container where she's reviewing it and not reliving it, it was like, here you go, there's the memory. And because we found it, we could then rewire and heal it for her. And then she was not even affected anymore and was flying all over the place and didn't have to take Prozac.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
You know, I think about this a lot. One of my teachers in my training, energy medicine training, would remind us that anniversaries of traumatic events really are impactful, right? So I even have a friend this week who got sick and then realized, oh, in 4 days is the anniversary of when one of the dearest people in her life passed away 2 years ago. Right. So it's like the body, like anything that the body is still holding, like the body, it's still like, it's all in there. Freaking all in there.
And the beautiful thing is you can rewire that too. Yeah. It's creating a new associated feeling to the event.
Yep.
If you're willing to do it. And I do a lot of desensitization with people with trauma as well, because it's like, that's how you heal something, where you can actually think about it and it doesn't kick up those same old feelings that it had when you first experienced it.
Yeah. And you know, I've been working, you made me a recording and I've been listening to my recording since my session. And those moments too, like the 3 memories that came up for me in my session were like, they seemed so insignificant. They were not traumatic. It was like getting shooed out of the kitchen by the women in my family and feeling like so isolated and like a burden and all these things. And like,
and then your cute self hiding in the clothing rack. Oh, so cute.
So funny. Someone come find me. Show me you care. like 6 or whatever.
I love her.
So you have so many resources I know that you've created for folks over the years. So if anyone wants to is super curious now about hypnotherapy and how that all works and, reprogramming the subconscious mind, you have a ton of stuff. Where's the best place for people to like get started or find you or start digging into this?
Yeah, so you can go to my website, stephaniekwong.com. On my site, I actually have a free hypnosis audio all about manifestation, and it's really about aligning your conscious desire with your thoughts, beliefs, and your energy. And then, those are like the free resources. I have a 40-day self-love transformation online course that will take you through different practices and different teachings of what self-love to me truly are, which is really ways of being with yourself versus the doing. And then I have a self-hypnosis course as well. And you can find all that stuff on my website.
Cool.
And I have
amazing.
my podcast on there too.
Yes. Rise Higher. I was on your show. When was that? I was still in Malibu. So it was did I live until 2018? When did I move here? A year ago?
Yeah, a year ago.
So I think probably earlier on in 2018. So this is so amazing. I love that. And again, I hope people listening are also just appreciating like I call it like your thoroughness. Cause even like that, like if people walk away knowing that you want to change your beliefs, it happens through repetition, hypnosis, a high impact event, or somatic, like it's so simple, thorough, and just like handle your shit. I feel like you're like that kind of person who's just like, I'm just gonna keep going and layering it on and seeing what works.
You got
and like
to
being diligent. And then, I will say, because part of that, so one of the things that came up in my session related to that, like most people are disasters and untrustworthy, is me not letting in all of the high quality support that's available to me. Right. And so even by doing a session with you, talk about friggin' high quality support. You're that.
It's already changing. Yeah. Because again, look, I love it. You had a conscious desire, right? I want to, like, now you're not, I need to let in high quality support. You wrote on your intake form. So we know that it's something you consciously know that you need and you want. But now when we get your beliefs to align with, I'm worthy and deserving of having it flow in, or it's safe for me to have it, boom, it starts to show up.
Safe for me to have it was the big thing for
it's
me.
the same thing with like people. I have conscious desire for money. But if you have a belief of I'm not worthy, deserving of it, or it's not safe to have it, or rich people, evil, whatever, if that conflicts, never going to have it. Same thing with I want a relationship, but I feel unlovable, never going to have it. But once you align the subconscious with what you want, you have it, and you did it. So I honor you for letting and allowing me to support you in that way. So let's rewire that sucker, because girl, you're going to have tons of high quality support all up in your space, because what you're doing is so incredible. And you get to just work in your zone of genius, and everybody else gets to do the rest for you.
Totally. Yeah. And for people, I will share one more thing for anyone listening. There was a piece for me that was so amazing to uncover, which I'd uncovered earlier in the summer, of like actually not trusting people's generosity because of experiences I had had when I was younger of receiving generosity or support, or call it whatever you want to call it. And then finding out later on that there was like a hidden contract or like a cost to it. So like that, literally, I mean, I'm a week out, so I will continue to let you know how that is revolutionizing my friggin' life. But appreciate this so much. Appreciate you, everyone listening. Check out Stephanie. Go to her site. We'll put links in the show notes. You can check her out also on social media. But thank you so much. You're great.
So are you. I appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I love you so much.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.
No, you don't have permission to talk to me like that. And also, you don't know my body, but it's so interesting, because we're still going to live in this world where we're going to be, men and women are going to reflect back to us things that they don't have permission to say. But it's up to me to do the recovery work really quick.